let's take a quick look at the headlines, see what's happening today. We've got this Anthropic best AI model. See, corporate America is not attracting the big companies who'll pay for them. I do always wonder about the consumer model, which, it does make some funny little cat videos or a monster video here and there, but are there really people who are willing to pay $20 for that? And, I get these emails about you can do stuff with Claude and have this dashboard of all these agents you can have posting tons of stuff and creating this and contacting sales leads. I just think that normal people don't have that many tasks to do. I'm not trying to automate thousands of people to do things. And also with my clients, I don't want this AI junk being given to them. I don't want them thinking that I'm just using AI in my emails or my copy. It's who said that? Somebody said, it doesn't show, using AI most of the time doesn't show you're resourceful. It shows you're kind of cheap and non-personal. And I'll have to get a copy of this video. But I thought, how long will it be before companies will start having kind of anti-AI videos? And I think it was Chase Bank has one where it shows this guy and there's a robot making his coffee and I don't know, the car is talking to him and he's kind of down. And then he goes to Chase Bank where it's all actual people dealing with him. See, that's the attitude you got to watch out when you're implementing AI in your business. Normal people don't like to be treated as a nuisance and have AI deal with them instead of a person. Let's see, and this is all connected to worrisome, the economic situation, and especially before the midterms. Stocks generally go up, I guess, in the summer, and then they have a slight depression in the fall. I can't remember the reasons of people who manage the stocks have to make sure they lock in year-end profits, and there's a bunch of factors that make it go down. And certainly the fall time, especially October, has been a time with lots of corrections and crashes. So the Democratic Party that would like to wipe Trump out are very much keeping their fingers crossed that something like that would happen. And it seems likely, we're well overdue for that. I suppose in an anecdotal way, the one thing that trends against a big correction is that corrections usually don't happen when everyone's saying they're going to happen. They usually happen when everyone's saying it can only be up, 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 up. Not much of a big headline today for the Drudge Report. They have he's a 70 or 80-year-old man, and he's a little fat. So I think when you get to that age, you should be eating what you want to eat. You're not going to get better from being 80 years old. So have that Big Mac. A couple times I was really sick and I had some dire circumstances, and I was told, yeah, the chances are good and you should eat this, this, and that. And I went home and I thought, no, I'm gonna drink. I'm gonna drink a can of Diet Coke every hour because it makes me feel happy. It's the only thing I can keep down. And then I'm gonna order out for McDonald's. I'm not gonna spend my last few days on life eating rabbit food. I think, as the Aussies say, that is salads. Data centers. This is becoming a political movement on the right and on the left. Everyone can agree. They don't want these mysterious things that we all know what the reason they're there and why companies are investing in them, the big companies. They're advertised as helping eliminating people's jobs. This does look like a shot from South Park. They took our jobs. See, here they are. But this, that's what you look at. That's what those which workers look like. So there we go. We've already done that. Okay. What else do we have? We have the dumbest trade war in history. How can we get into a trade war with Canada? Economically, they're essentially other states of the United States. As Greenland, we had full access to that. Just again, Trump has you have a certain number, you have a certain amount of impetus in what you're doing when you're a president, and you don't want to squander it in pointless, weird digressions like a trade war with Canada. And now it is true, 100% true. You can make a good case, just as Donald Trump did during the elections, and many on the right have said these big trade agreements screw the U.S. over, and they do. But there's ways to handle things. So let me recenter myself here. And again, you don't want to have more disruption like this before the midterms. See, the Republicans that are up for re-election must be quaking. Here's one of those great uses of AI. This is all the fruits of our data center and everything here. It's Rand making videos threatening to kill Barron while he plays Xbox. So I don't see, if AI is supposed to be so smart, you would think that they just wouldn't allow those types of videos to be made. Maybe that's free speech, maybe it should be, but it's amazing the things that are unregulated and tolerated concerning AI. This was interesting, and I read this article. I tried to understand what it meant. In theory, there should just be people staying illegally in the United States or committing crimes who are foreigners, illegal aliens, as you used to be able to say. But all of these articles do make it sound like that the United States is just rounding up foreigners. And they don't make it clear. And the fact that these articles don't make it clear what's going on with this guy being rounded up makes me suspicious of the article. So I'm looking like, okay, somebody, I guess the articles are positing like if you were here illegally, supposedly, it's hard to say from the article, and you get your son in the U.S. Army, you basically should be able to stay. That's the thing that they're emphasizing how many extra shifts this guy did, and he's out there in the Persian Gulf in the long deployment that's driving everybody crazy. But they took his dad away. But they don't make clear what exactly they took him away for. Now somewhere in here they do say the dad had some permit to work. He's lived in the U.S. for 19 years. That's always a big thing in the United States, where even if you're an illegal, the longer you stay in the United States, the better it is. Most country, that means bigger charges. And go out to, countries like Thailand or whatever, you just decide to overstay for a few years, 19 years, you will be blacklisted and arrested. That's a crime. He loves his children. Okay. Stop the presses. Yeah. It would be an interesting quote if it said, yeah, he doesn't get on with anybody and he fights with the neighbors. So in here, it doesn't make clear, but it said the dad had a permit to work, but it didn't say if he was a legal alien or he was, if he had done something else that disqualifies him, or what his immigration status is exactly. And then the government had a kind of different reply where they're saying, nobody can break the laws of the U.S. and get away with it, blah, blah, blah. Certainly, I think the writers of this article should kind of focus in on, okay, the government said that. Either the government's lying or they're telling the truth. But the information to understand why this guy was deported is not there. And it would make, to a normal person reading this, it would make it seem like, oh, well, the government is just picking up guys who happen to be foreigners. And is that the case? This is a very generic article. It doesn't give you the information you need. Superfans rally behind the mother who killed her children. It's postpartum depression. She killed 3 children. Can we have, as far as we know, we have our one life. And if you really ever do something really stupid, really bad, how do you ever come back from that in your life? Unless you're totally delusional or you don't have empathy or, you know, I suppose it's even worse with the if she really did have postpartum depression and she's completely not responsible. She's the victim here. Well, whatever. Even if that's almost worse, to think that at any time you think you're a normal person, but you just snapped, that would be horrible. Trump comedians. These are, you see, this sort of thing does display the divide that's in the U.S. electorate, where everyone gets their news so separately, right and left. You can be on the left side and have all of the left side voices in your ear and have one certain reality. Like, oh, this Trump, he did something funny. We'll just say he was ranting about something and everyone say, yeah, because it's so ridiculous. The right has their own thing, voices that whisper in their ear and their own news, and they get a thing about, well, Trump is kind of stroppy, but he's a beleaguered president and he's doing hard things that needed to be done that only a complete, almost insane maverick could do. So this kind of comedy ends up, anti-Trump comedy ends up in its own little echo chamber, and it does get boring after a while, and it would not appeal at all to maybe half of the electorate who are in a different reality. Okay, here's about the midterms, Texas, breaking rank with the president. And this is, I may have neglected to answer, to mention this point in the past. One of the dangers for the president coming up in the midterms is if the Democrats get the majority in the House, they'll be able to create tons and tons of committees and investigate forever and ever, endlessly, the president on every aspect, and have big televised things where they subpoena witnesses and they can capture the media attention. And most of the major media is very much opposed to Trump. So this is one of the dangers. And also they can get the votes to impeach him. And it doesn't matter whether any of these things have a basis to have an investigation, but I'm sure there is in this case. But you could do anything if you just got the votes. So this is a real danger for Trump going past the midterms, and does show how reckless he was in starting that war with Iran. Even, it was against all of his campaign pledges, but even if he said it has to be done, which is true, it has to be done someday, the U.S. was getting in a mess with that someday, a prudent person who had their wits about them would not have started that war or been dragged into that war before the midterms. I would even say, if Netanyahu or whoever was convincing him, those guys on the Israeli side should have said, wait a second, this president will do what we want. Let's make sure we don't start the war before the U.S. midterms, because it's only going to disadvantage our greatest ally in the United States. What's this? I forget. Oh, we're so addicted to Trump-era turmoil, we don't know how to live without it. Yeah, I think this is just frustration in the media that they're making fun of Trump, and for half of the people, half of the viewers, it just doesn't land. Or, they're not following what the media says about Trump. I mean, I think we there was some of that after the 2016 election, where during that election that was between Trump and Hillary Clinton, the media taught the electorate again and again Trump was a womanizing, no good, crazy guy. Hillary Clinton was the right person to vote for all these different reasons. It wasn't even something just a reasonable person would look at that and have that feeling. And then when Hillary was not elected, you do have this feeling, I think, that was in the media a little bit, like people are not paying attention to what we told them. And that is perplexing. Ocean broke temperature record. Okay, that seems like to happen all the time. Country with no army, that's Iceland. I didn't realize they didn't have an army. How dare they? Develops missiles, try to develop missiles. These running, dancing robots, who knows where that's leading. Getting high has only gotten cheaper, I guess. Good or bad. And this is, even within the U.S., it's hard for a lot of people to understand how vast and terrible some of the conditions can be out west in the United States. Even where I'm from or tend to be around in the eastern United States, we have state parks, but you can look at the map and always on the other side of the state park are some big cities and towns and that sort of thing. But when you get out west to the United States, you get into some really, really vast areas where it isn't like any of the parks on the east side of the country. And you could get into very serious trouble very, very easily if you underestimate the dangers, as these people did. It'll kill you. You'll get stuck out there. I remember one time this is about 10 years ago. I was being driven through the what's it called? The Eastern Sahara on the border with Libya. And it's this long road, and the guy said, this road just a few years ago before they put up all these cell towers, because you could see the cell towers, he said, people, if you stopped out here, even like to change a tire, you might die. That's how terrible it was. So they would close the road like during the day, and there were certain times they have convoys through. But now that they have the cell phone towers, it's just a regular road. It shows how a little bit of technology can make things safer. I wonder if they have anything like that in Death Valley. Maybe because it's within a park, they wouldn't put that cell phone coverage in. I don't know. And I wanted to, there's more and more of these news aggregation sites. I've been looking at the Drudge Report one. It's a lot of fun. It's an old one. It's over 30 years old now. It's done some historic thing in its time with just putting headlines in there, and a lot of news outlets still look at it for ideas and stories that catch eyeballs. Because whoever runs this, and no one's quite sure anymore who runs it, they just have a knack for picking out the right kind of stories. So, but, I think we've seen more and more of this over the past few years. These aggregated things, I don't know, possibly by AI. And it's just another one I subscribe to. It's just a little jaunty take with some news headlines it is tried to be stuff that grabs attention. Having being very old really isn't newsworthy, but it is interesting. Then they'll say this person, what are their secrets? And it's always just either they don't drink alcohol or they do drink alcohol, or they don't have very little stress, or whatever. But this is hardly a big headline, but maybe it was a slow news day. Then you have the obligatory medical condition headline, like, oh, this thing may keep me alive a little bit. But then I just wanted to kind of make fun of this line. When Holly Berry, someone who could partner with anyone, chooses a probiotic company, you pay attention. Is this? Oh, well, that's an ad. See, I miss it. In partnership. Okay. Well, that's why it's written it's such a silly way. Okay. Let's keep going. It did look like a headline. I was not paying attention. Quick hits. There's a lot of news aggregation sites like that. This is kind of a little better. This is today's one. It's an interesting site. So here's another medical. I'm just noticing. See, they caught me on that Halle Berry one. No, so here's one. Plot twist. It might be your liver. Oh my gosh. Because everyone says, yeah, I've treated my liver pretty badly. So this is it's a medical kind of article that is done in the style of the rest of the site, but it's an ad. So anyway, I wanted to end on this. This is how much of the internet is written with AI. Let me just turn on this. I only turn on the JavaScript I need. Okay. Yeah, that's really necessary to have that animation, to take up that. Okay, let's go. Yeah. Okay, so it's something like 9.6%. So from the beginning here, when AI was coming out, okay. ChatGPT in 2022, anybody could use it. Now, gosh, is it almost? So this 9.6% of web pages showing significant AI editing or authorship. That's and I think everybody knew even before that there were a lot of spam websites that came up that would capture your searches with like long lists and listicles of things. So if you looked up a product, there'd be a website that would say top 10 of that product. And then there was an article. And when you looked at that article, it's like they kind of scraped information from other sites. So that's kind of pre-AI. So a lot of the net, we're getting to this dead net. Oh, and this is the, I guess this is just what I'm talking about. If we filter old websites out of the samples, look only at the pages published after the release of ChatGPT, the trend is more pronounced. So now 35% of all pages published after ChatGPT are artificial, fake. I mean, they might have real information. Nobody can know. But that's the world we live in. So stay tuned for some more headlines, and I think it's kind of fun to look at these, and like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Bye-bye.